You almost look like that old school, like evil guy who ties a woman to a train tracks.
Wow.
And he does this with the mustache after he does it.
Instead of like
Yeah, the old school bad guy.
very handsome, where's your beard?
It's there. It's very faint, but it's there. I never go completely. I never go baby bottom bald on my face, even if it looks like it. If you look enough, and luckily, I have the ability to grow facial hair at an extremely rapid rate. Like the term 5 o'clock shadow is if I shaved myself in the morning, shaved everything, by 5 o'clock, I would have a shadow.
So it's like
I grow facial hair at a rapid rate.
Well, you look younger. So give that up. Oh, and we're on. So, but the mic checks are fine. So we're ready to go whenever you want to start.
Oh, we're on? Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Passion Project. By the way, I just want to say thank you to people who recommend guests to us. I have a bunch of guests that I got to reach out to because people are starting to recommend guests to us. Took a while to get that going, but now it's happening, so it's good, including our friend Tim Hally here from Monk Creative, who was recommended by an amazing woman, Nicole Torres, my wife.
We love Nicole.
How did you guys get? I know that. So when my wife was running for select board in the town of Shrewsbury, which she lost,
it's hard.
It is
it's hard.
I thought she had it in the bag.
I cast a vote for her. You know,
Yeah.
we were big. We had the sign out at the end of the driveway.
I
We were
know.
big supporters.
Yeah, so it's funny because I was just looking at it from like the point of view of like all the work that she did, and I'm like, oh, you got this in the bag. There's no way you're not gonna win. She came in fourth, but she won our little district
Precinct?
our precinct.
Absolutely.
And the I remember the first day we went door knocking, which I said to her, I'm like, I don't door knocking, really? She goes, yeah, we have to go introduce ourselves to neighbors and stuff. And I said, people open the door for you? Somebody comes knocking on my door, and I know that they're doing it because they're running for something. I am gonna let them know that I'm home, and I'm still not gonna open the door. Yeah, I'm like, there's no way. I go, no one does that. And she says, no, that's what people do. So we knocked on a couple doors, and nobody answered. And then we went and knocked on this one door, and not only did the gentleman answer, but he came outside, and it got to the point where I remember saying like, hey, I think we gotta like go. I don't know if you're supposed to spend this much time talking to somebody. And that guy was your dad.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, he came out, was so nice. And him and Nicole were just going back and forth. He's going around showing us his house is beautiful, telling us the story of the area and everything. And I'm like, oh wait, people do answer the door and they are like nice. He turned out to be like literally like the nicest person. It was the first person to answer the door, and other people answered and other people had conversations with her, but your dad by far was the nicest human being. He set the bar high.
Absolutely. No, my dad's like one of the best people ever.
Yeah, he's really, really nice guy. And then Nicole, was it your dad that introduced you? How did you and Nicole?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I mean, I think I saw, it might have been around when I saw Nicole get the Worcester Business Journal 40 under 40.
Yes.
So I was part of the cohort last year. Mm-hmm. So what I like to do, like from a networking sense, is just like reach out to people that are on the list, people on part of my cohort. I saw your wife was part of the cohort, so I reached out to her. Carlos Garcia is a great friend of mine. He's on the select board.
Yep.
He was a huge support of your wife's campaign. He really wanted to see her in there. Mm-hmm. So I asked him if he could like introduce us because I was like, well, you guys live down the street, so I feel like I should like know who you guys are. And then it was even funnier when I think my dad was like, yeah, like her husband's some like radio personality. And I'm like, and he was like, Ramiro and Pebbles. I'm like, holy shit. Like, I grew up on you guys in the bus, in the car. So
appreciate it.
Just to put a face to a name and to know that you live down the street is hilarious. But yeah, you Nicole and I connected over coffee in Shrewsbury. Talked about, she's now a managing partner at the law firm. She's kind of talking about some branding stuff. But then she said you were doing this podcast as a way to like diversify, your personal brand and open up some other avenues. So she said with conviction that, going to refer him onto the show. So here we are.
Yeah, it's funny because when she finished, she was like, I just met with, what's your dad's name, Bob?
Jack.
Jack Hally's son. You got to have him on the podcast. And I'm like, there's no way. This whole family's nice. And she's like, they really are, though. That's not a normal thing. It really isn't.
Yeah. No, we've and I'm sure my dad gave you the whole top to bottom of like what we've been through and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a reason for it. You know what I mean? Like we've been through a lot, so we're very like gracious and empathetic in that manner.
Yeah. So we'll get to you. I know you are the co-founder of Monk Creative.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, co-founder of Monk, a creative agency, which is just a soft way of saying, you know, we do marketing and branding. I think creative agency is a term for, we look at things through a branding first lens. We look at things through a messaging lens, whereas marketing agencies really are just more about like, okay, here's the outcome you want. Let's just hit the ground running. You know, we try to be more thoughtful, more intentional. And yeah, we've been in business for coming up on 5 years, coming up on our 5th year anniversary, December 21st, 2020 is when we launched.
Very nice. Everything's going good so far?
I mean,
you obviously have, you know, startup hiccups and stuff like that, but I mean,
100%.
overall,
100%. We're 5 years in. The business is sustainable. This year, I'm really proud. Just like our cash flow has been super consistent.
Yeah.
When you're in project-based work, it's very kind of lumpy, kind of come and go. Like they call it like feast and famine in our world. It's very common.
Yeah.
But we're 5 years in. We have a great reputation. We have a great local audience. I'm just like, I think as we're coming up on the 5th year milestone, I'm just like practicing so much gratitude. Like even on the drive here, I'm just like the fact that I get to wake up and roll out of bed. You know, we've had 3 video productions this week. We're going to St. Mark's tomorrow to film some stuff there. But just the fact that I get to roll out of bed and come to Waltham and join you guys, like that's just like a dream come true. So I'm just grateful to be here and just grateful to even be in this position, genuinely.
That's awesome. All right, so let's get to your story now, because he does have a very interesting story.
Oh yeah,
and stuff.
It's a good one.
You grew up in Shrewsbury your whole life?
Grew up in Shrewsbury my whole life. You know, I was born in 1996, so it's kind of strange. You know what I mean? I could be the youngest millennial or the oldest Gen Zer. So our generation's kind of considered like Zillennials.
That's what I call myself.
Is that what you call yourself, a Zillennial?
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's like, I remember a time without social media, you know, like a PS2 and GameCube when things were simpler, you know, social media didn't follow you wherever you went. But then around middle school, high school, we started coming of age, you know, Instagram, Snapchat started becoming popular. So I can kind of have this interesting perspective of like living between both worlds.
Yeah.
But yeah, grew up in Shrewsbury my whole life. And I pretty much had a normal childhood, a very grateful childhood. If you grow up in a town like Shrewsbury, a lot of your life is determined by the zip code you're born into. And that's not a choice that you choose, right? But Shrewsbury is a fantastic town, fantastic school system. But yeah, to get to it, right, like my entire life changed on April 22nd, 2013. Essentially, I almost watched my mom die in the high school parking lot after my high school lacrosse game. So yeah, just get into the good stuff. This is like the you know, where you make the clip and it's like, this is like the emotional backstory. But I think every good entrepreneur has one, right? So it's like April 22nd, 2013, I was a sophomore at the time. I was 16. I was a little bit older for my grade too, so I got my license before everyone. I had my Candy Red 97 Volvo. Absolutely loved that thing, missed that thing. My sister ran into the ground. It was still running when I had it. Never like changed the oil. It was bad. But the fact is, like it lasted. All to say, I made varsity lacrosse that spring. I played long stick midi. And we had a home game that day against Minnechaug Regional. And when the days that your life changes permanently, it's like the most normal, benevolent day. I remember that day. I woke up, I saw my mom in the morning, and my mom was so gracious. She had the same routine every day. She'd wake up, you know, attend whatever she had to attend to, but she would always leave me a brown paper bag lunch. And I think that's really like a symbol of like a mother's love. Like no matter what she had going on that morning, she worked, she did everything for us. She left that on the table every single morning. And I remember that morning too, like when you're 16, you know, you're hormonal. Yeah. You might bicker with your parents. You might, you know, not see things the same way. But that morning we woke up and it was so docile. It was so calm, normal. Saw my mom, grabbed my lunch, headed on my way, drove to school. And then also the other thing that day that indicated that it was a weird day. I got a good grade on my math test. That should have been the first sign something horrible was going to happen.
Yeah. It's going to balance out so bad the other way.
It's going to balance out. It was like, I kid you not, it was blue skies. I got a good grade on my math test. I was feeling awesome that day. We played in this double overtime thrilling win. And you could hear my mom screaming from the hillside. You know, she was a huge support. She was the loudest woman in the stands. She was Irish girl from West Roxbury, so she had a lot of that Boston energy. So she was very supportive, very loud. Oftentimes to a T, you know, we'd be playing like basketball. My mom would be like, "Get him, Tim, get him!" And I'm like, "Mom, we're playing zone. Like, I'm not supposed to like run after the guy." But I'll just say things took a turn. I went back to the locker room, and I exit the locker room, and you know, the Shrewsbury High School parking lot, the gymnasium side, there's oftentimes like congestion, takes a little time to get out, but it was odd in the fact that it was like standstill traffic. So I'm sitting there and no one's moving, no one's budging, and it's a little peculiar. But then next thing you know, I see like columns and like hordes of people rushing to like the furthest most corner. And I weave my way through the different cars. I see two of my teammates. And I look at them, I go, "Hey guys, what's going on?" They just stare. They didn't say a word to me. I turn the corner and I see my mom's white Volkswagen. I look in and our athletic trainer, Walter, is trying to resuscitate her. She's like convulsing from the mouth, white foam pouring out of her mouth. And like the shock, right? It didn't even feel real. You know what I mean? I think anyone listening to this can relate to trauma in that way of like when things like that happens, like your body goes into this state where like it's like depersonalization, like derealization. I didn't even know what to do. I called my dad. I told him what happened. He came rushing back. And then shortly after, the athletic director drove me to UMass. My siblings live far away. They're much older than I. 6 and 8 years apart. That was a mistake. My parents didn't mean to have me, but maybe some higher power meant to have me here. But it's a fun joke. They're all good. But all to say, they lived in Wisconsin and Virginia, respectively. You know, they did kind of the opposite. But all to say, we got to the hospital. A doctor pulls me and my dad into a small room, the emergency room, and he sits us down and he goes, "Mr. Hally, your wife just had a brainstem stroke." And immediately my mind went to, I had my childhood best friends, Kevin and Colin, respectively known as Beef and Bones. That's a good story. Basically their father, a year before my mother, on the same street, on Spring Street, that little cul-de-sac at the end on the right there, it's like Meadowood, I don't know. Their father had a stroke, and I immediately went, "Oh my God, no. Like, my mom she's going to be in the same state as Mr. Ward, you know, handicapped, wheelchair." And his was a little, like, way less severe than my mom's, but still, like, pretty severe. Mm-hmm. He has, like, a pretty good, like, to this day, he's still around, good quality of life. But all to say, those moments, it's just so wild how, like, things can change so quickly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I don't take anything for granted, because I learned from a very young age at 16 that things can change on a dime. So what then from there? The doctors basically said, and I didn't know this, my parents were shielding me from the worst, but the doctors basically said she has 3 days to live based on the location of the injury in the brainstem. The brainstem is kind of the channel, the in and out of all the signals, the input and output signals of the brain. So based on where it was, they basically said due to the location, the inflammation is going to kill her within 3 days. Like, she's not going to survive the inflammation. You know, we all get injuries, inflammation occurs after. Yeah. They said she wouldn't survive. 3 days later, she survived. It's nothing short of a miracle. Literally nothing short of a miracle. So what ensued after? She was in an ICU for about a month. And again, you know, you could probably ask my dad this story and he could probably tell you like all the details. You know, I was young at the time, but she's in an ICU. And then from there, she got stepped down to Whittier Rehab Hospital. And all to say, she was like the most severe you could probably get. You know, there's a huge spectrum in which strokes can occur.
Yeah.
There's kind of like the lower end of the spectrum where it's like, you know, there's some physical handicaps, you know, challenges. And then on the other end is death. She was like on death's doorstep. So, you know, she was very locked in, couldn't move. You know, she had a trachea tube. She had a feeding tube. She couldn't move. At that point, too, when she was coming out of her coma, essentially, she could only blink, like yes and no, like one blink for yes, two blinks for no. And the most fortunate thing out of all of this, which isn't a fortunate situation, is that the stroke impacted my mom's motor capabilities, but it didn't impact her mind. My mom is still my mom. You know what I mean? Like, she can't obviously do the things that she wants to without assistance, without 24/7 nursing care, quite frankly. But she was still my mom after all of that. So she got stepped down to Whittier Rehab Hospital. And then shortly after, she actually got sent back to the ICU because she got a blood transfusion from someone who was like visiting somewhere in like West Africa. And I guess within that blood transfusion, I can't remember if it was like West Nile virus or yellow fever. It was like one of those kind of. Yeah. So she got a blood transfusion. She had like 104 fever, had to bring her back to UMass, ice blankets, the whole deal. So she went back to the hospital, then went back to Whittier Rehab in Westboro. And this is where we learned a lot about the healthcare system. Mm-hmm. I think one day, and again, my dad can tell this story way better. Essentially, the case manager came up and said, "All right, where's she going next?" I'm like, my dad's like, "What do you mean? Where is she going next?" She's like, "Well, the 60 days are up." So I guess with these kind of occurrences, health insurance gives you, you know, 60 days in this type of care, and then maybe like 180 days in like a step down version of care. And then it's all calendar based. It's not need based, it's calendar based. It's on a clock. So while she was at UMass at the hospital, the clock was ticking, and we didn't know that.
Yeah.
So they wanted to move her from Whittier Rehab Hospital, which is quite literally second to a hospital, and they wanted to move her and step her down to a facility in Holden where the nursing and staff ratio is much, much higher. So as compared to maybe, these are inaccurate, but as compared to like maybe 1 to 6, it's maybe like 1 to 10 or 1 to 12 nurse to patient ratio. And she had a trachea, and she would asphyxiate on the mucus. She would choke, so she'd have to get suctioned, which was a brutal process to watch.
Yeah.
You know, someone would come in with a tube and literally like suction out what's clogging her trachea. So literally, if she got stepped down to this facility in Holden, my dad was pretty much like, "You're gonna kill her. Like, she will die if you step her down." So my dad, and this is my favorite story. And if you ever see him again, you should ask this story. It's my favorite story. He's told it 100 different ways, 100 different times, and it never gets old. But like, essentially, he pulled out all the stops. You know, he's a well-connected guy. He's a business guy. He knows some people. Turns out he knew his friends he went to college with. He happened to know someone who was a golf partner of the CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield Massachusetts. I mean, my dad will go to any end for the people he loves. Like, he was about to have Channel 5 News at Whittier saying like, this is what's going to happen. You know, he was, you know, getting lawyers involved, getting people on the phone, like, "You're not going to move my wife." So long story short, somehow his name got, you know, put in front of the CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield Massachusetts. And basically the message was like, don't mess with this guy because he might be a little crazy, but also, you know what I mean? Like, He will go to those ends. So they actually extended us an extra 30, 40, 50 days. And that was enough to, you know, get her in a safe spot where she then went to Holden Rehabilitation. And from there, she got placed into the trachea unit. So again, my entire life when I was in high school looked like I'd wake up, go to school, which, I mean, how high schoolers go to school at like 6 a.m. is absolutely brutal when you have like a developing adolescent brain. It's just absolutely crazy. So I'd go to school. I would either go, depending on the season, I played basketball and lacrosse. So basketball practice would be like at night, lacrosse would be right after school. I would go to school, visit my mom, go to sports practice, switch those orders, whatever, do homework, repeat. You know, I was pulling 12, 14, 16, 18-hour days as, you know, a teenager. So that continued on for 2 years. And really, you know, as we get into more of the story of like how the business came about, that's where like my empathy, really formed, right? I'm in a hallway full of trachea patients, ALS patients, people with traumatic brain injuries. And the saddest part about that hallway, there's a lot of hope in seeing like the healing that nurses and CNAs and healthcare providers provide. It's also really sad when you go to these facilities, how little families actually visit their loved ones. It's brutal. And you know what the difference maker was? We were there every single day. And if I wasn't there every single day, my dad was there every single day. He would drive in snowstorms. It would be like complete blizzard on 290 or the Pike or whatever. Yeah. And literally a state cop pulled him over one time. It's like, what are you doing on the road? And he was like, I'm going to go visit my wife. Yeah. And so the state cop literally gave him an escort. All to say where that brought us is 2014. I was a senior in high school. And again, my dad can speak better to this, but essentially we found some kind of waiver, or it's called the Acquired Brain Injury Waiver through UMass Chan Medical School. And essentially every single year, there's like some Supreme Court precedent set in Massachusetts back in the late 2000s where a lot of women like my mom, they brought the case to the state, basically saying like they deserve to have care in the comfort of their home. So my dad discovered this, and we were able to actually bring her home, and that was built on the back of a really successful fundraiser we had in town in 2014. I think we raised something like $160,000 in one night. This is 2014, inflation adjusted. So
Jesus.
So in today's world, that's probably like $500,000 at this point. But point being is we raised this money. We built a handicap accessible addition on my parents' house where it still exists today. And through these different mechanisms, which is a huge legal pain in the butt, getting around Mass Health was a pain in the butt. But long story short, we got her home in 2015, and I credit her coming home, and I credit her receiving care in the comfort of our home as the reason that she's still living, 12 years later, because outcomes for these types of people, they're not good. So all to say, I really had to grow up from a very young age, and it just made me the man I am today. And like when people say things aren't possible, or they say that that's not achievable, I look at my mom and I'm like, you're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I see a living miracle every day, and you're telling me I can't start a business? You know what I'm saying? Right. So all to say, that was a lot. This is the show. You guys have to ask questions, but that's kind of the initial backstory.
But whenever somebody suffers some sort of tragedy like that, it gives you as far as I know, I mean, it happened with me with my ex-wife. It gives you a whole new perspective on life. And before the tragedy stuff happens, you hear stories sometimes of people being like, I know that I lost my arm, or this happened, and I'm grateful that it happened. It's the best thing that happened to me. And I'm like, how in the name of God's balls are you saying that this terrible thing that happened to you is the best thing that happened? But then when it does happen, you get it, because you get this whole new appreciation for life. For people, sometimes you'll go into a coffee shop or something, and you'll see somebody stressed the fuck out because, I don't know, maybe they're running a little bit late for work. They ordered their Starbucks online. They walked in. The coffee's not ready yet. Already, they're like, my fucking day is my day's ruined. And I'm like, dude, really? Like, this is like, if this is the worst thing that's happening to you in your life, you got a pretty damn good life. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, when you go through stuff like that, I don't really sweat the small things.
Right.
You know what I mean? I have bad days like any good person, but when you have perspective like that, you just also understand how just fragile, being introduced to this concept of mortality at a young age is pretty numbing. I'm 29, so I feel as though people my age are getting their first licks of it. You know what I mean? You hear of people our age getting cancer. You hear people dying early deaths that they shouldn't. People are losing their first parents. So to have that experience at a young age, I mean, again, it made me who I am today, and it made me capable of what I'm doing today.
Yeah, that's great. Your dad is the freaking man. You want to talk about somebody who loves his wife.
Yeah.
And would go. A lot of people say like they love their spouses, but like
the test.
Yeah. Yes.
It was a true test. And there were people in his life probably that were like, oh, just, put her in a facility, move on, blah, blah, blah. But, my dad, and that's the thing, like, no marriage is perfect, no relationship is perfect, but just that commitment.
Right.
Like, my dad made vows to my mom, and he upheld those. You know what I mean? And inversely, my mom showed her children what it means to like fight.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason that she's still here is because she wants to be.
Right.
There's nothing in this world that will take her out. She will decide when she wants to go. And through both of their relentless, almost stubborn persistence, that consistency, that love, that purpose, it just defines who I am. And it showed me from a young age to like never give up on anything. And even before all that, my parents wouldn't let me quit anything. I had like no self-esteem as a kid. Yeah. I was always kind of like 2 steps behind. Raging undiagnosed ADHD is probably the reason for all of that. But no, they show me how to never give up, and to have 2 parents like that, I'm very fortunate for sure.
What did your dad do? You said he owned a business and stuff. Like, logistically, how was he? Did he just stop working?
Man,
when it came to taking care of your mom, or?
Yeah, it's a great question. So my dad, my side of the family, the Hally family, there's a lot of entrepreneurial DNA. My grandpa and my nana own small businesses. My nana was like a hustler. Yeah. Like, I really think she invented like the side hustle. She introduced like Yoplait yogurt to Central Massachusetts. She was tabling. Growing up too, we have a barn on our property that you probably saw. Yep. The barn stalls would be full of coupons. So you remember as a kid when you go like grab those like coupons out of the machine? Yeah. She would stock those. So it was just like she would make money doing it. She loved it. Got her out of the house. All to say, my dad graduated Holy Cross, and he got into the trade show exhibit industry. So, companies spend a lot of money on these trade show booths at these big conferences. It could be for medical devices, security, IT, whatever industry you can think of. So he got into that business, and then he actually worked with my Uncle Mike. So him and my Uncle Mike were like the dynamic duo. Started a bunch of companies, had huge success with this one company in the 90s called Folio. They were getting all kinds of investment and left and right. 2001 came, 9/11 came, and some investors pulled out. So
what was Folio?
It was I don't know where the name came from. They had like their logo was like a boar, and that's probably inaccurate. So but it was a trade show exhibit company. And okay. Yeah, same idea. He's been in the same industry.
So let's say I own a company, I want to do something for a trade show. I hit up your dad, and he's like, "We'll set up the whole display and everything." Is that how it works? Or?
Yeah, so like those kind of booths that he works on, they're like hundreds of thousands, multi-million. So they're like multimedia. They could be like 1 or 2 stories. It's like immersive environments. Oh, so wow. When you're trying to communicate these like really impressive products, you want something to kind of translate that. So he works on these like really intricate, complicated, sexy exhibit booths. Not so much like here's your table and you know what I mean? Yeah. So they're pretty complicated stuff. But when my mom got sick, he kind of had to take a step back at his current company called Blue Hive. So he's one of the founding, kind of visionaries of that company as well. But when my mom got sick, he kind of had to take a step away from his career. He couldn't travel as much. And he's just had a life and a career of just like, starting, building, rebuilding. And my mom's stroke definitely was, definitely put a stop on some things. But, now he's, 65, and I've never seen him so busy. So he's actually like entering like this like golden era of his career. I'm always, I live at home, so I'm always, watching my mom when he's gone. But he's traveling a ton. So business is good for him. Business is good for me. So we kind of work together to support each other in that way. But yeah, when people get sick, careers sometimes take a second priority, and he definitely did that for the longest time.
Yeah, that's so funny that that was his career, and you're kind of doing the same thing in a different way.
Very horizontal, very adjacent.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's I never wanted to like start a creative agency because like my dad did like trade show exhibits. It's just kind of like who we are, like our DNA as Halleys. Like even my brother and sister, they're not necessarily in marketing roles, but like they have that like entrepreneurial kind of marketing brain. It's just kind of inherent to who we are. And really what marketing I think comes down to is storytelling, right? It's like I came here, I told you guys my story. I think that the best marketing is when we are able to connect on shared values, shared experiences, and shared tales of adversity. Like, we are essentially just trying to communicate what makes us human. And when we connect on what makes us human, I think that's the best way a company can possibly, message, market, connect with other like-minded folks to actually like drive business. So we're just kind of storytellers in the Hally family. And I told my story my whole life. So it became natural to want to tell other people's stories as well.
Right. It's funny. I feel like maybe it's because I'm older, but when I was younger, there was just companies. And you never really knew the story behind the people that started the companies or anything. Now you're getting that all the time. I think a lot of it has to do with social media.
Yes, it does.
Where it's somebody who's, I started this because of blank, which makes you, it's way better than just like a regular testimonial.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
100%.
It's like, I started this company because this is how I grew up and this experience led me to this. And you're like, damn, you know what? You know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, and again, I think it's more of a social media based. People are just doing things in a different way, marketing stuff. But before, it was always whatever the company was. Let's throw a customer, a success story, but you never knew like the story of the people who actually started the thing.
No, it's I think with social media, we are all able to control our own narrative.
Yeah.
Whereas before, we relied on mass media, TV, radio, bulletins, paper ads. Like, we relied on mass market and like mass market channels.
Yeah.
So they kind of controlled what the messaging and the narrative was. But now with social media, it's very decentralized and democratized. Decentralized less in the case that it's all owned by like 2 or 3 companies. But in a traditional sense, like, we all can put out our own messaging free and reach potentially hundreds, thousands, millions of people with the click of a button. If the algorithm gods are blessing you with reach, you can change your life overnight. So social media has completely changed marketing, and it's taken us all from relying on media companies to us becoming the media companies. The person is the media company now. So that's why storytelling matters, because also back then we were all told what to think, what to feel, what to buy. But now there's so much like power in the consumer's hands that they need to make decisions based on their values, what matters to them. And that's why I think branding's so important, especially in a world where anyone could be anything at any point. Because social media, on the inverse, people can lie, people can project an image that isn't true.
100%.
So I think when it comes to branding and personal branding specifically, I think it's this gap between how you present online and how you present in person. The closer those two things can be together, the stronger your brand. However you show up in person is how you need to show up online. People have a hard time bridging that gap, not because they're not good marketers, because I don't think they have courage. They don't have courage to put themselves out there as they are. And again, that's how I've built my business over the past 5 years. Yeah. Not necessarily being better at what we do. I think we deliver a great product, but so do a lot of other companies. I built a business, and Justin and I built a business, my co-founder, just essentially through sharing our story and telling people who we are.
Right. Do you think it's easier with your business in particular? Do you think it's easier or harder because of social media and pretty much anybody could almost do their own thing on their own, like you were saying? Do you think that you're doing well in business, but do you think that you could do better if it wasn't so easy for someone to be like, yeah, here's me and check out the cakes I made?
I actually think because it's easier than ever, it's almost harder than ever. Does that make sense? Because there is so much chatter, there is so much noise, that I feel as though because it's so accessible, people almost don't take the opportunity. Like, people don't realize that with social media, with the age we're living in, especially this younger generation with like generative AI and such, they can code, they can make websites, they can make apps with the click of a button and one prompt. The A to Z, the point from ideation to creation is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But because of that, I think it creates this unfair or unrealistic idea that people just get rich in like 30, 60, 90-day increments. You know what I mean? You have everyone selling you a dream, everyone's selling you a Lambo, a course. That's just not what entrepreneurship is. So I think we've all been misled to think that it happens overnight when it really is not. It's not a months or a days or years kind of game. Entrepreneurship is a decades long game. So social media has given this idea that you can just pop online and start something, when in reality, it actually takes way more time and effort. And I think because of that, less people stick with it.
Right.
It takes so much time, and you just got to eat so much shit, to say the least, and just be okay with really seeing nothing. You know what I mean?
Right. There's a lot of like, well, I mean, I've been doing this for a week. Why is it not working?
I posted for a year. That's not enough. It's not enough. You need years and years and years. But and too. You've created your career. Like you are an entrepreneur.
It's all. I try and like say this to my kids all the time. I'm like, it's what you do when nobody is paying attention. When you literally have the option of saying, you know what, I just want to lay down, put on some sweatpants, watch freaking TV and eat popcorn for the next couple of hours, but you decide not to do that and work in whatever way, shape, or form towards your target. That's what makes a difference. It's easy to work hard when everyone's staring at you. You know what I'm saying? Because you're like, yeah, everyone's staring at me. But when no one is staring at you and you have the option of doing nothing and no one will know because you can lie about it, that's what makes a difference.
100%. And no one really understands too. Like, you can project an image, you can share your journey, but no one sees the moments. I can think of so many building Monk over the past 5 years, the long teary-eyed filled nights driving around the reservoir being like, quite literally, where is our next project coming from? You know what I mean? Those first couple years really stung hard. It kind of affects your self-esteem when you're getting rejected those early years of entrepreneurship. But it really is those quiet moments where, you are being tested on your vision. I think vision is this ability to project into the future. It's the ability to see what others don't see. When we were building Monk, no one saw what Justin and I saw. Like, we knew where we were headed, but the only two people who could believe it were the two people in that room, right? And then I think a vision also takes faith. Believing in something that's unseen. Believing in the outcome before it happens. I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up, right? If it's not immediately present, if it's not immediately available, the courage and the resilience and the long-term orientation it takes to get where you want to go with anything ambitious, a lot of people just kind of give up and fall short. But that's why I think purpose and like mission are so important, right? I think you probably can relate to that. Like, do you feel like this is like your purpose?
I have a thing with purpose. I think a lot of people, when they think of the word purpose, they think of this big, giant, profound thing, which then they get stuck on because they're like, I just can't think of that thing that the man on top of the mountain would tell me is the reason to live a life. And I'm like, no, first of all, you don't need to have one purpose. You can have multiple purposes, and it doesn't have to be this big thing that's going to change the world. Like, for myself personally, I have a purpose with my family, with my kids. My purpose with them is, everybody wants, when people think of having kids, they're like, I want to give my kids everything so they don't have to work for anything. Do you really want that? Then your kid's probably going to be a piece of shit. Like, it's true. Like, I want, if I'm here, I want my kids to be here. So then that when they're here and they have kids, their kids can be here. It doesn't have to be here to here. It's just you don't want your kids to be worse off than whatever it is that the way you had it. That's one. Another one, I have my purpose of my relationship with my wife. I have just a random purpose where I just want to have a bunch of random awesome experiences, so that at the end of the day I could like look back at my life. I kind of like, if I were to write a book about my life and someone were to read it, I want them to be like, holy shit, then what happened? Then what happened, And then I have a purpose too with this, with my career. Radio in particular, but I think even a lot of people in life, they kind of, and everyone, it's different, but I think a lot of people have just kind of like, let me see where this takes me type of thing. And there's a lot of stopping and starting and stopping and starting and changing or whatever. And they never get to the point of creating momentum, if that makes sense. Where I always, even from when I was young, I almost pictured my career as like one giant narrative. Almost, again, like one giant story in a book where all the chapters connect in some way, shape, or form, And I don't know, I think ultimately, a lot of the things that I consider my purpose it all comes down, if you want to say, to the base of the tree, to my kids, to kind of, I want my life to be, I guess, a lesson to them. Be like, listen, everybody at some point in their life has to kind of restart, whether it's because of divorce, job loss, whatever it is. You kind of, I don't think anybody has a life where you don't have to do some sort of restarting, you know, if that makes sense.
100%.
And ultimately, you have to. I literally say this to them so much that my son was like, "We just need to get this as a tattoo." I say to them, "Keep moving forward." All the time. I'm like, keep moving forward, because if things are good, like, you know, whatever you consider good, keep moving forward. Keep it going. Use that momentum. When you hit that detour, when you come to the point where there's a wall in front, whatever it is, keep moving forward. Because that's where the difference in a lot of people's lives are made, where they hit that first obstacle and they go, oh, this isn't going to happen. Thinking about being an entrepreneur. There's probably so many people that could have been successful entrepreneurs, but once that first, how you were saying, that first, like, what are we going to do next? How are we going to come up with the next, you know, money to pay the bills or whatever? They gave up at that point, whereas you didn't. And the people who are successful are the ones that, like, no, that's when I kept moving forward and figured it out. So that's my way of when I look at purpose. But I believe that life takes a whole new meaning when you finally figure out whatever your purpose is for everybody.
Absolutely.
Like, and sometimes you see someone who, like, you almost want to sit them down and be like, what's your purpose? You know?
I'd much rather talk about that.
Yeah, because you sometimes see people that you're like, oh, you're just kind of like living in this day-to-day fog of Groundhog Day over and over and over again.
Oof.
And you need to almost like sit back, and it's such a cliche thing, but get to know yourself. And once you do that, it just changes the way you live life, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think people are more, I was actually going to write a LinkedIn post about this. Love LinkedIn, by the way. Great platform. Yeah. I think people are more afraid of success than they are failure, because failing is easy. Like, not say easy, but if you fail, you can say, oh, well, I failed. It didn't work. But if you step into something and you succeed, that's actually more vulnerable, because it exposes you. It shows you all your shortcomings, your strengths too. So when you actually step into something wanting to succeed, it's actually much harder. And then also you have to, like, uphold the promises you make. So we started this agency. We're promising an outcome, a product, a service, really. That's vulnerable, because in providing that service, you know, we have to take accountability every single step of the way. And that's the thing about entrepreneurship. At the end of the day, you can't blame anybody. You know, me and Justin have each other, and we never really, like, blame each other or anything, but we take accountability collectively. Like, oh, something came up short, that's our fault. This didn't work out, that's our fault. So succeeding is actually much more vulnerable and much scarier than failure ever is, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense, because then you're like, I got to keep this going.
Yeah.
I got to kind of, like, do better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the next thing? What's the next evolution? You know, I think especially with our company in Worcester, you know, Worcester's become our home. I love Worcester. I love the business community. I love, you know, the cultural community in Worcester. I'm a huge stakeholder, you know, not just with Monk. I'm on several nonprofit boards of directors, so I'm very involved in that way. I'm also an adjunct professor at Clark, so I actually teach on Thursday nights. I go back to my alma mater, and I teach kids about entrepreneurship, public speaking, connecting. But I just love our community, and through that, though, I feel like I have to find continual new ways to show up. Like, people expect us to innovate. People expect us now to be kind of leaders in that way. So that's another way that success is kind of vulnerable, in the way of, like, man, I can't stay stagnant. Like, we got to keep moving and pushing and iterating. And that's why I love the process. So that's why every day is different. That's why I do it, you know?
Who was it that came to you or Justin and said, dude, we need to start a business together?
Oh, man. Okay, so there's a story with this, too. Here's another fun one for the pod. So going back to 2015, mom moves home. I stayed local for college. So I actually went to Assumption College on a D2 lacrosse scholarship. I actually wanted to go to Clark initially, but it's a D3 school. They couldn't give me as much money. I took out student loans, so I was like, okay, I'm going to the place that gives me more money. I want to stay local, be close to my mom. So I went to Assumption, and Assumption's a great school. You know, a lot of people find success there. A lot of successful alum come out of there. I was on the lacrosse team, and I had a coach, and put it this way, I would eventually transfer to Clark, and in those 4 years that I would have been at Assumption, my old teammates would joke that there were 45 men who either quit or transferred. And if you know lacrosse, 45 men is enough to field a whole team. So there's certainly like a cultural challenge on the team. He's one of those coaches that just like, and not to like, you know, put this on air, but in one of those coaches that unfortunately just made you really despise the sport you've loved. Like lacrosse gave me so much purpose, especially with my mom. We won the district championship. I was sick in high school. We won the district championship in 2014, and we won it in front of my mother. It was the second game that she came to. The first game she came to, we lost to Wachusett, and it was like embarrassing. I'm like, my mom came all this way in a medical van to come watch us lose. But she came to that game, played at Foley Stadium. We won in something about double overtime. So, oh my God, I just put that together. Holy shit.
Oh, that was all your big games? She
had a stroke after a double overtime win, and then we won the championship with a double overtime win in front of her. And my coach gave me the trophy, and I ran it over to her. There's still a clip of it online. The whole crowd was in tears. Like, it was like, There's parents that I've never seen show any emotion, and they were just sobbing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But all to say, lacrosse meant a lot to me. It got me to college. But when I was at Assumption, fall 2016, I encountered a lot of challenges and a lot of difficulties. To put it in short, I got kicked off the team, and I lost my scholarship. So that's a fun story, and that gets into, you know, how I got to Clark and how the business started. Yeah. And this is a story that, like, when it comes to my Clark teammates and friends, I haven't told a lot of people. So if you're hearing this for the first time, I'm really sorry. It's just more, I think we're all entitled to share what we want to share. And I've become more like courageous with this story. It's nothing bad. It was just unfortunate timing. But long story short, I was a dum-dum in college, especially when I was at Assumption. I wasn't really, and this isn't a reflection of the school. It's a reflection of me at the time that I was. You know, I was smoking a ton of weed. You know, I was doing a bunch of different stuff that I shouldn't have been. And at a school like that, you know, marijuana isn't really encouraged. You know, it's a little more, not say conservative, but a little more, you know, they don't like seeing people smoking marijuana. You know, it wasn't celebrated. It was very much, not a good thing. Whereas at Clark, I went to Clark, and there's just kids smoking weed on like the common grounds. I'm like, can they do that? They're like, oh yeah. The police just go, hey, can you just like put that out? But a point being, you know, I had a couple roommates. We lived in a suite together sophomore year, and sometimes you need, you kind of need to be redirected. I think that if you're not going somewhere where you're supposed to be, you know, the universe will kind of come in like a hurricane and just wipe you out to your foundation. Yeah. The house you were building was not meant to be your home. So I wasn't meant to be there. And what happened was, you know, we were all idiots. We were smoking weed. A couple teammates of mine, including one of them being my roommate, the night before tryouts, him, my captain, and 3 freshmen on the team were going off campus to smoke weed the night before tryouts, like Friday night. And they got pulled over. You know, they found an ounce of weed, dabs, beers, fake ID, the whole greenhouse. Everything that you could possibly get in trouble with was in that car. And the crazy thing is, and, you know, however much more we get into this, you'll kind of learn that I'm a very spiritual person. You know, 2 weeks before that happened, I remember we were in the parking garage with my roommate, and I was like, I had this weird intuition. I saw a cop going around checking parking passes, and I turned to my roommate. I'm like, hey, is there anything in the car? Is there anything, you know, that you should be like wary of? And he goes, nah, don't worry about it, whatever, right? The reason they got pulled over 2 weeks later that Friday night is because the cop was going around checking parking passes, and he ran his plates because he saw a one singular loose beer in the back.
Oh, wow.
Ran his plates under 21. So now, and my roommate at the time, he had a white BMW with blacked out rims. So like nothing says huge target on the side of a car than like a tricked out car. So the cops were out, the campus police were out for him. You know what I mean? So they saw the opportunity. He was going off campus. They got in huge trouble. They all got indefinitely suspended till the conduct process figured out. Now, Tim Hally over here hadn't even gone in trouble at there's like a point system. I was the only person out of my like 24 person class that hadn't gotten any points. So I'd never gone.
Every time you get in trouble, you get a point?
Yeah, it's like college. Like, you have a loose beer out, that's like 4 points. You're being loud, maybe that's 2. If you do something severe, it's 10. But once you get to 10 points, that's like suspension, expulsion. It's just like a conduct system. Some schools have strikes. They had points. Okay. All to say, it was, so 2 weeks after they got in trouble, it was a Thursday night. I was studying for 2 tests. And all my classmates, teammates, whatever, they all go out to the bars on Thursday night. They went to Leitrim's on Park Ave, which is like a big college spot. So I was studying, I was in, they asked me to drive them to the bar. So I drove them to the bar, came back, no problem. Then I got to like 1 a.m. And this is just around when Uber was like just like 2016, like just kind of coming into the fold. And they kept repeatedly, calling me. I kid you not, I actually think I had like 18 to 20 missed calls. Come pick us up. And I was like, no. And I was a pushover at this point in my life too. So I was like, no, I'm not coming to pick you up. And this is where kind of that like spirituality comes in. I don't know how to describe it. It's happened, I could count on 1 or 2 hands in my life. And maybe you guys can relate to this, where it's like a whoa, like a thought. Like it just appeared in my head. It was a voice, I kid you not. It was so loud. It said, "You need to go." Like it literally was like a gravity. It was like, "You need to go." So I literally looked up I kid you not. I look up at the sky. I go, "All right, I'm going." Grab the keys for the white BMW with blacked out rims, and I'm going off campus. It was a closed campus, and I was driving off. And just before I got on Salisbury Street, there's a stop sign. And I did a incomplete stop. I kind of rolled through the stop sign.
The old California stop.
In the California plates, with the California plates, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was from California.
That's funny.
So next thing you know, I get pulled over, blue lights behind me, and I'd never been pulled over by police at this point in my life. So I was so nervous. And license, registration, whatever. Give him my license. Next thing you know, I'm like, well, where's the registration? Open the glove box. All my roommate's weed is there. So immediately I knew what this meant. I was like, uh-oh. I'm in the car that already got in trouble with the roommate who already got in trouble. Now I'm in trouble in this car. Like, this isn't good. So the cop's like, what's that? Goes back, calls for backup. The whole like police force comes, and they're like checking the car and all of that. So here's what you shouldn't do. So I tried hiding it, which is so stupid. That's like, never. If you're listening to this, never do that. It's so stupid. That's a huge offense. Don't do that. I had it. It was like a singular nugget of marijuana, and I had it in my hand. Yeah. I was like, what do I do? Then like the quote unquote good cop came to my window. He's like, get out, whatever. So I had it like locked to my side as I'm like walking out of the car, and they're all checking the car, whatever. I think they're not looking, so I try to throw it behind me. And then next thing you know, the police chief, who had this like silver foxy hair, he's been like decades of experience. He catches me out of his peripheral vision, and he's like, what was that? And I was like, so then they catch me in the car that already got in trouble trying to hide the marijuana. And then to make matters even worse, that night, there's some people snorting Adderall off my desk. I was not partaking, but they were snorting Adderall off my desk, and a rolled up dollar bill ended up underneath my chair. And so I had raging ADHD. I was like, oh, $1 bill. Why not? Right. So I put it in my pocket, and I left it there. So now I'm in the car that got in trouble with marijuana, trying to hide it with roommates who already got in trouble. Now I have paraphernalia with residue of a class B substance or whatever.
This is like a scene in a movie where
Yeah.
I could see why they think you're guilty.
Oh yeah.
I'm listening to the whole backstory and I'm like, dude, I would have thrown you in jail.
Oh yeah. No, preponderance of evidence is a term I learned. And yeah, it was not a good situation. It was not a good situation. So I went back to that room. Me and my roommate stayed up till 6 a.m. Like, what are we going to tell coach? What are we going to do? We were crying. We were like, oh no, we're screwed. We're absolutely screwed. So you know what I mean? It was all handled within the university conduct system. It wasn't in Worcester. It wasn't like any police involved or anything like that. So I was very fortunate for that. But long story short, my roommate wanted me to, and there was no really getting out of it. You know what I mean? Like he kind of wanted me to like try to take the blame, try to take the fall. And essentially, I got into that conduct meeting. All the while, we're temporarily suspended from the team. We were on weekend suspension, so we couldn't be on campus from Friday at 5 to Sunday at 5. So that was really hard. I was going home. We didn't tell my mom anything because, she would, in her state, she would not have been able to handle that well. Yeah. So she's like, oh, Tim's coming home and visiting a lot. Nice. But I was really in trouble. So long story short, my friend, for the purpose of time, me and my roommate kind of had a falling out, and to this day, I don't hold anything against him. We were young, we were dumb, we were in a horrible situation. I got my academic punishment, which wasn't bad. They gave me it was a 10-point system. They gave me 14 points out of 10. So I want to know if there's like a record book, because I might be I'm definitely top 5 for sure. My first girlfriend at the time, it was my first, young college age relationship. She broke up with me 2 weeks after that happened. It was just a lot. And again, I don't fault her for that either. But long story short, it all got to my athletic punishment. Mm-hmm. So up to this point, I was like, wow, they didn't kick me out of school. They haven't kicked me off campus. None of that happened. I get called into the athletic office. My coach is like, hey, can you meet me and the assistant athletic director Tuesday at 10 o'clock? And again, once again, my friend, it was a blue sky, beautiful fall day. I skipped accounting class, walk in. I see my coach.
Wait, what were you thinking, though, before you went in there? I'm already in my head. I'm like, I'm getting kicked off the team.
I think there was a part of me that thought just maybe that it would be like a bad suspension, like 4 or 6 games, something like that. It never quite, maybe it was in the back of my head, but maybe I was just so young and dumb. I thought, maybe this won't happen to me. But I get in the meeting. I'm in the waiting room. My coach walks, hey, coach, how you doing? Oh, hey, Tim. Just walked right by me. No eye contact. I sit into the meeting. I'm sitting across from my coach like this. The assistant athletic director is kind of off to the side like this. And long story short, he was just based on everything, I can't have you back on the team. This is not our culture, not our standards, blah, blah, blah. I just sat there and I cried because I knew what this meant. I got kicked off the team. I lost my athletic scholarship, and basically my whole identity was just ripped away in that very moment. And honestly, it wasn't even the fact that I failed. The worst part for me was having to go home and tell my mother that I was a fuck up. Yeah. That killed me. So the silver lining in all this, and also again, I don't fault my coach. We put him in a terrible position. If I was a coach, knowing what I know now, I probably would have done the same thing. You know what I mean? And I actually went into his office the next day and I forgave him. I literally, because he had to also sign a release for me to talk to other coaches, but I literally went into his office and I forgave him the day after that all happened. And the one thing he said to me though is, I can't have you on the team, but I know a coach down the street that would love to have you on the team. So enter Clark University.
Oh, cool. So
the Clark coach, Jeff Cohen, bless his soul, best guy ever. Love that guy. He set my life on such a great trajectory. He was my club lacrosse. I played in a club lacrosse team that was out of Clark. So next thing you know, we had a meeting. I told him everything that happened. I was very earnest. I just want a second chance. I just want to do it right. I want to come to your school. I want to get good grades. I want to play good lacrosse. So 2017, he made it happen for me. I transferred to Clark University spring 2017, and it was the single best thing that ever happened to me. Getting kicked off that team was the single best thing that ever happened to me. I would not be here in this room today with you guys if that didn't happen, right? So I went to Clark, had a great season. I was starting within 3 games. And, again, I didn't tell my teammates a lot of that story I just told you, and that's something I feel a little guilty about, but it was just like I was coming in. I just wanted a fresh slate. I didn't want to rehash my story, and they all accepted me with such, like, open arms, and they're all still great friends to this day. So, point being, one of the very first classes I took at Clark that Monday morning was Entrepreneurship 115. Clark is a very forward-thinking, innovative, progressive, entrepreneurial school. So at Clark, it's less of like a how, it's more of like a why. So everyone there is like always thinking outside the box. It's encouraged to think outside the box. So being around those folks, being around that culture, it's also a massive international student body. So I think 40% of the students at Clark are from around the world. Yeah. So I could be sitting in class next to someone, I had a partner who was from Nepal and Ethiopia, or even Russia, Germany, South America. It was just so cool to get a global perspective. And that really, that culture provided the fertile soil for my entrepreneurial endeavors. I caught the bug, so to speak. My first efforts with entrepreneurship were kind of landscaping, mulching, weed whacking, brush trimming, brush removal. I made a killing doing that kind of stuff. That's where I learned like the soft skills of entrepreneurship. And then it came into...
This was while you were in college you were doing that?
Yeah, in the summers. Yep. So I was actually able to, I never really had like an internship or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Life was kind of my internship. It worked out well. I encourage all my students, like, please get an internship. Don't be a dum-dum like I was. So you asked where me and Justin come to the picture. Senior year at Clark. I knew I kind of had like a spiritual calling, which sounds crazy, but I had this force that was moving me. And it was like, you need to do something bigger than yourself. We talk about purpose. Yeah. And that something needs to utilize your natural skills, talents, and abilities to help other people. I think I was so focused on the money through the lens of entrepreneurship. But whatever was kind of moving me and calling me was like, no, it's the other way around. You impact the people first. You impact your community first. The money will follow. So that was the itch I went down. And I couldn't figure out what it was, but it was so urgent. And I had this like, I know I have like a piece of this, but I can't be the only one. There has to be someone else out there that can like complement this. So I don't believe in chance, right? I believe we're all put on the same path. We're all put together for the right reasons.
Everything happens. This conversation we're having right now is for a reason that we're having it today.
100%.
You know
what I mean?
100%. I remember one time I went to dinner with a bunch of friends, and it was like my friend's birthday, and he had a few people from work that were his friends, and then he had a whole group of like personal friends there. Randomly, I got sat next to one of his personal friends. I kind of got sat in this mix of like nobody I knew, kind of, like in that little group. Started talking to one of his personal friends. You would have thought we were on a date. We were talking the entire time, and he opened my eyes. He goes, there's a reason we're sitting next to each other right now. There's a reason those people behind us are walking behind us right now. Everything in life, it's set up for you. Sometimes people, they'll think to themselves like, why is this happening to me? As opposed to like, this is happening to me for a reason. You got thrown out of school. Like you said, you going to Clark was the best thing ever. You getting thrown off your team. It's all, at the time, it's hard to see it sometimes.
Yes.
But if you get that mindset in your head, it's easier to deal with it.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, in retrospect, I tell people that was the best thing that ever happened. And that's what led me back to Justin, my now co-founder, and really just my brother, my best friend. Like, I love Justin so much. Like, when you have a business partnership, it really is just like a marriage. Like any marriage is a partnership. A business partnership is no different. Where Justin came in, I was trying to do something creative. I didn't want to work with my hands, want to work with my mind. And it kind of led me to start self-teaching myself videography. So I bought a point-and-shoot camera, a Canon G7X. I bought a shitty HP laptop that could barely run Premiere Pro. And I was just kind of tinkering, figuring it out. I was drawn to video, not because I grew up and I was like, oh, I want to make films. You know what I mean? I'm not that kind of person. Like, I can't even sit through a movie. I like horror movies because it's like a thriller. You don't know like what's happening. But if there's a movie, because I am a storyteller, I can like know the story that happens. Like the first 5 minutes, I'll spoil movies for people. So like I can't sit through 2.5 hours of like exposition. I don't have the attention span. All to say, I was drawn to video as a form of storytelling, but also I saw video as this way of like, it was like the language of the internet. Like video was really becoming the medium in which we connect and express. So I wanted to teach myself how to do it, not because it was easy, but because it was really hard. I remember those first times with my cameras, just figuring out the settings. I wanted to huck these things at a wall. You know what I mean? Like it's, and you probably get it too. You know, you're in that world. One tiny little thing in your whole, you know, for example, we could be doing this podcast. One little cord isn't plugged in, or the SD card gets corrupted. Like one little tiny thing, and it's all gone to shit.
Yeah.
So I learned video because it was hard. Where Justin comes in, all of a sudden I see him on Instagram. So Justin had a really unique story actually too, and he takes a lot of ownership of it too, and I'm proud of him for that. He was a college dropout. Justin went to Quinnipiac University for a month, did not love it, did not see himself there. And mind you, even though he's considered a college dropout, like he's the smartest person I know. Justin is the most brilliant. He is the smartest person I know. Like he got crazy SAT scores. He could have gone to any of these colleges on a scholarship. Like he could have done any. If he didn't have the creativity he has, he would be the best engineer or architect you know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he just has that like creative soul in him. All to say, he dropped out of college to write a book. He was like going back and forth to New York, working with a publisher. Then on the side, he was like doing like blogging, making websites, doing like graphic design. And I was doing like the video thing. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. So then next thing you know, I just started running him everywhere. I went from never seeing this man. You know, I was one of his first friends he made when he moved to Shrewsbury from Ohio in 2000. I think that was 2008, 2009. Justin moved from Ohio to Massachusetts. His dad got laid off and then took a job at Hanover Insurance.
Yeah.
So I was one of his very first friends that he made. And we, you know, went to school together. We're friends, you know, in high school where like you're really cool with somebody, but you don't like hang out outside of school. You might have classes. Like, oh, hey, Justin, what's up? And I'd always make this joke that Justin in high school would wear like the same like 2 outfits. I'd be like, jeans and a sweatshirt again, which is so funny because like to these days, he's the most like fashionable person I know. Like he's actually like taken like, you know, he's kind of stepped into everything he like wants to be. And it's just kind of funny to think that. But all to say, I'd never talked to him, never thought about him, any of that. Then next thing you know, I ran into him at the bowling alley, ran into him at 7-Eleven. I was seeing him on Instagram. My friends were running into him in downtown Worcester. Like he just kept appearing. It was like the universe is like, hey, dumbass, this person, you're supposed to connect with this person.
Yeah.
So eventually I had him over to my barn one late night. I was telling him about this side project I was creating. It's called Tim Hally's Fourth Quarter. It was a vlog to, document my last lacrosse season at Clark. And through that process, I'm like, I need a logo. You know, like, can you make me a logo? Come to my 3rd floor apartment in Maine South. Like, let's make a logo together. So one late night, this is like the Genesis story. I tell this story every time, everywhere I go. I tell the story probably multiple times a week. But it was one late night. It was like 3 a.m. in the morning. We were trying to come up with this logo. It wasn't happening. I go to sit out in the common room. My butt like grazes the couch by like an inch. And then next thing you know, like the minute that you go do something else, you immediately come back and you're like, I got it.
Yeah.
I rush into my bedroom, a whiteboard just like that. I'm drawing on the whiteboard. I'm like, this is what I'm thinking, blah, blah, blah. I had the vision, right? And then Justin, he's like the integrator, the architect, the operator. He was like, oh, I see what you're doing there. Yeah. Opens up his design software, beep, boop, boop. 3 a.m. in the morning, we had this logo. And you would have thought like we won the Super Bowl or something. Like we were jumping up and down. We were so excited, so elated. Like that joy, that energy, that co-creation and elation that comes when two people come together over a shared vision. That's what will become Monk today. So that's where we met. And eventually got to the point like our idea of fun in college, you know, I would have him come to Clark all the time. He would come to like our parties, come hang out with us. We'd walk around Maine South, Coast Pond, just thinking of the stupidest ideas, of which some of those original dumb ideas, you know, now that we're 5 years in, I think we might start implementing some of them. More to come. Point being, we decided, hey, we should work together, right? My dad was kind of the one in my ear, like, hey, if you just do like some pro bono work, you get a portfolio, like you guys can like start an agency around that. So that I took that idea. I was like, oh, we both have the skills. So in 2019, we started working together, started freelancing. We did a ton of free work. We got our starts in like real estate videos. So we did like the real estate walkthrough videos.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are pretty simple A to Z type style videos. Yeah. And then, we were doing social media, branding, figuring out like, what do we want to do? Who do we want to be? Right. So from there, 2020 happened. I was in my 5th year at Clark, doing the accelerated MBA program. So I do have my MBA, which I kind of forget about. It's just like on the wall. And I'm like, oh yeah, I have that. That's cool. I only put it on my business cards because like, I just think it's hilarious. Like it's kind of like an inside joke, like Tim Hally MBA, you know what I mean? But all to say, my friend, we in the pandemic felt as though, and I'm sure when you guys talk to more entrepreneurs that come on here, I hear so many people that started their business in 2020. So we decided, I was 23, 24 at the time. I just moved home and we were like, we have nothing to lose. Better to have been rising out of the ashes than get incinerated by the flame. So we were like, it's already so bad. Like, this is actually the most opportune time to start.
100%.
And if you look at history, 2008 recession was, a fertile ground for so many businesses we know today. So all to say,
moving forward,
100%.
it really is
100%.
Yeah.
So all to say, we had this idea in our head, a hypothesis that is proven true to this day, coming up in 5 years. We looked at the agencies in our area, and they all are fantastic. They do fantastic work for their clients. But the one opportunity we saw was these people all do a great job branding and marketing their clients. No one does anything to brand and market themselves. So we said, from day one, instead of making a agency, if we had a brand, what would that look like? What would that sound like? We could be serious. We could be funny. We could kind of play both sides of the fence and like just be human about the way we go about things. So through all of that, through a bunch of names, through a bunch of iterations, we settled on Monk. So the name itself is spelled M-U-N-Q, and it's I would say it is renditioned after the monks, the M-O-N-Ks of real life. I came to find that monks actually played a role in my life. So when my mom was sick, my dad would go to St. Joseph's Abbey in Spencer, where they're called the Trappist monks. They take a vow of silence, and they like come to know enlightenment, come to know consciousness, God. They're very like thoughtful, meticulous people. So he would go there and pray for my mom. And then my middle name is Francis, so St. Francis of Assisi. I think that was like my confirmation name or something. Yeah. He was a very egalitarian, started the Franciscan order of monks. He was a very peaceful, intentional person. And then third, I had a friend who was psychic. I know, great stuff. And she would look at a photo of me and she would like freak out. She'd be like, this guy's here to do like something really big. Like he has a very strong purpose. He's here for like a very specific reason. And for whatever reason, whenever I see a picture of him, I see an image of a monk.
Wait, she was saying this to your friend?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So like she was like, oh, hey, I'm like, talking to this guy and like, here's like a photo. And her friend would look at the photo and get these like images. And one of those images was a monk.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. I tell people that story, but like, all to say, I became fascinated with that. I was like, what is it about monks? So I looked into it. So the monastic lifestyle, it's not about a religion, it's about a way of life. So there's monks practically in every single religion. Every single religion has their own version of monks. So it's more about a way of life than it is about like a doctrine. So I told Justin we were thinking of a name because we didn't want to be like 123 ABC marketing. If I was a company called Grow Lead Marketing, you'd be like, oh, great. Yeah, they do marketing. That's fun. Yeah. But point being, I was like, we should call ourselves Monk. And Justin was like, well, no one's going to know what we do. And I said, that's the point. Because the best question I get every week is, how'd you come up with the name? And what that does is it allows me to tell a story. Right. And by telling a story, I can now kind of almost sell you our services without even selling. So all to say, it was my idea to call it Monk. It was Justin's idea to change the spelling because that's for three things. For one, it creates a brand device. So not everyone could be an M-O-N-K. That's a unrealistic standard. Monks are like perfect people. We are not perfect people. So we wanted to essentially make up a term that could be used as a brand device, and we can assign the meaning to the name, right? So now MUNQ becomes more of a identity for the people that connect with us. Anybody can be a monk so long as you believe what we believe. And then from there, the curvature, the MUNQ, it just looks nice from a design perspective. And 3, when you type it into Google, we own the whole first page. And as a result, we've been able to trademark the name, trademark our logo. So the IP was uncontested. So by coming up with a fake name, and it just like rolls off the tongue, it's just like awesome name. All the same, my friends, we decided to take the courageous leap. And on December 21st, 2020, the darkest day of our darkest year, the winter solstice, when the night is at its peak, right? We launched Monk, a creative agency, all in hopes that the 2 young men who started it could bring light to a world that needed it. So when you come back to your original question like 15 minutes ago about, who came up with whatever, it was a co-creation, and we launched the business. And again, we're at our precipice of a 5-year milestone. Most businesses don't make it past 5 years. So again, even just driving here, even just, throughout this week and this month as we get closer to that milestone, I've just been practicing so much gratitude. Like I can't even believe some of this is real, honestly.
Yeah.
But also I knew the whole time, whether it was in my parents' goddamn basement when this all started, their dusty, cold basement, there was nothing but a vision. And I knew for a fact, and we both knew, no matter how hard it was, no matter what challenges or adversity we went through, we just knew we would get here. And it's not to say like we were cocky or overconfident. It was just like a knowingness. Like we were meant to be here. And 5 years later, I couldn't be more proud of what we've done. But I think the biggest thing I'm proud of is like the young men we've become. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurship is not, if you chase money, like you're going to give up so quick. Mm-hmm. We did not make a lot of money those first couple of years. We were draining our savings accounts. We actually had a moment that I call our kitchen sink moment where I won't forget it. We were both burnt out. We were cooked, as the kids say. And we were just like sitting in my parents' porch. We were like, essentially, can we keep doing this? Can we keep doing this? Is this worth it? Right? And it's in those moments, I call it the valley of the shadow of death, the valley of death in entrepreneurship. It's kind of like a curvature line. You start off, you have this initial excitement. You're like, oh, this is easy. This is great. The dopamine's hitting. You're doing like things for the first time. You get the LLC, you get your first t-shirt, you get your first client. But then you reach this inflection point where as your knowledge increases, you understand how hard it is and what you don't know. Mm-hmm. So we hit that precipice and it was crushing. But we sat there and we talked for like 4, 5, 6 hours. And what we came away with was like, we have not given it our all. The 2 people in this room can figure this the fuck out. We can still do this. And we stuck with it. And I am so glad we did because I couldn't be more proud of what we've accomplished. And more importantly, who we've become.
Right. It's so funny you were talking about 2020 because I remember when it was happening, so many people were kind of like, time to pause life.
Right.
I can't do anything. And I was always like, what are you talking? This is a time to try anything you've ever wanted to try because you have all the time in the world to try it. Mm-hmm. Doesn't work, but at least you try it. And, for example, that's when Nicole, so she graduated law school in 2015. Didn't even want to do the bar exam or anything. I was like, just take the bar exam because just to have it. Because if you don't do it, eventually if you want to do it, you're going to kind of have to study for it all over again or whatever. Couldn't talk her into it. All of a sudden, 2020, it was right before 2020, it was the end of 2019. She comes to me. She's like, you know what? I want to study for the bar exam. And I was like, let's do it. And she goes, but at this point we had... Our daughter was 2. Our son was 6 months old.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's like, well, how are we going to figure this out? And I said, listen, my dad's retired. We'll move into my parents' house. He can watch the kids. You go into the attic and study your ass off, and we'll do that. We did it literally from Memorial Day to Labor Day. Of 2020. So it was like the whole time that everybody was like, oh, I'm just gonna pause life and do nothing and watch TV and binge freaking Tiger King. I remember saying to my wife, I'm like, this is going to pay off so big because are taking advantage of this time that I think a lot of people aren't. Fast forward 5 years later, she's a freaking, actually, she literally just celebrated her 5 years at the firm, and she's a partner at the
managing partner. That's right.
Yeah, which is crazy. But yeah, like you said, and we've had other people in here too who said they're in 2020 is when they kind of like were, I have to hit it. You know?
No, and you know, from my just meeting you, meeting Nicole, I think one thing too, like I love your guys' is just relationship. Like, you know, as a man who is single as of like 7 months ago, you know, I'm kind of in that chapter where I'm like, all right, like who am I? What am I looking for? I see you guys, and like I love how, like from what I can tell on the outside, right? Like you both are just so like ambitious and career driven, but at the same time, like you hold capacity for the other person, and like you both are just able to like work together and like get where you want to go and like have fun while you're doing it, from what it seems. So it's just like
it's a partnership.
Exactly.
You got to do it. You do what you can to support the other person. It's a lot of people say like, oh, it's 50-50. It's not 50-50. It's 100-100.
Yes, I love that.
You know, you don't half-ass it. You do everything you can. I've said it to her. I said, she's the type of person who, she just happens to be doing law. But I said to her, in whatever it is that you pursued, I could see you being exceptional at it because you're intelligent. You have all of the attributes for it. You know, like she's intelligent. She works hard. She goes into a room asking questions, not to pass off whatever the duty is, asking questions so she can absorb it and learn and get better at it. All those traits. And I remember going back to when she was studying for the bar exam, there was, you know, days where we'd literally just be like, she'd be like, can we just go like on a walk? Because this is like when everything was closed, you know? So we'd go like somewhere on a walk, and she'd be going, do you think I can do this? And I said, I have zero, and this isn't me saying it because I'm your husband and I want you to feel good.
Right.
I have zero doubt that you are going to pass this thing. Zero. And I said, and listen, there's been a lot of people in my life that have tried stuff, and I've been like, well, maybe if the stars align, they might be able to squeak by.
Yeah.
You know some people who are just like, I don't want to say they're dumb, but like their, I don't know, capacity to learn is just different.
Yeah.
So there's some people who I'm just like, listen, they're smart, but they're lazy. They're not lazy, but their ceiling is a little bit lower than most people. I said, Nicole, I have zero. So that's why I wanted to create a situation where all you had to worry about is studying for the bar exam. I go, I never want to be a reason that you look and go like, man, I would have been able to blank if it wasn't for him. I go, I want to be the reason, I want to be one of the reasons that pushes you. And that's just a small example, but I think in life, that's how I am with her, and she is with me also. Like that's how we are with each other, where we try and, we're like, hey, listen, let's do everything we can so that you can blank whatever it is you want to do. Where not every marriage is like that.
Yeah,
but you'll find your lady. I keep telling that to Moose.
Yeah, I roll.
Yeah, you'll find your lady, Moose. It's okay.
But yeah,
you don't want to say anything?
No, he's right, and I think you're in a cool position too, because you're at that point where you're the best parts of you that were you 5 years ago, but you're about to merge into like something new.
Wow, he just comes in with like, I love that. No, you're absolutely right. And like, again, being on the precipice of 5 years, I don't know how to describe it, but I feel this like cycle kind of coming to a close. I look at my life the past decade, because I'm also 29, so 30s on the horizon in June. So I'm like entering this new season of life, and I'm just like, what's the next evolution? I've been going slow. I've been like taking my time. I have the business. I take care of my mom. I have like very few important priorities: my business, my family, and I love my friends. They're a priority too. But I'm entering this new season of like, well, what are the next ambitions for Monk, for Tim? What do I want my life to look like? And again, these experiences the past 5 years, I just have such a good foundation now. I have an awesome network. I have an awesome community. And again, I just can't believe it's all real. Really, genuinely. Like, I can't believe like we're here. Even just here in this studio right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm just so grateful. And I couldn't be more grateful for where we are.
Hold on. What was bringing it way back, what was the book that Justin was writing?
Oh, man. He could tell you way better. It was like a young adult science fiction novel.
Okay.
So Justin loves like world building and universe creating.
Yeah.
So I don't know the whole storyline. Horrible friend of mine. I don't know the whole storyline, but he created this whole like fictitious universe with like characters and stuff. He's just a very like thoughtful, creative, and that's, again, we both related over storytelling. Like, we never necessarily were, a lot of people that start marketing agencies, the whole model is they go work at a marketing agency, they go work in-house at the corporate side, and then what they do is they take that knowledge and experience and bring it and service clients, or they work at an agency, they leave that agency, and then they take the relationships and clients from that agency that they're closest with. We had no experience, but what we each had was a knack for storytelling, and Justin, through his book, through his experiences of trying to publish that book, I think he knows how to tell an awesome story. And for me, my storytelling chops came from the fact those hallways in Holden.
Yeah.
My people come to visit my mom, and I talk about my mom, but until you like actually meet her and see her, you realize how severe it is. For example, my sister had a wedding 2 years ago, and there was one of her old crew teammates. Her father came, and he hadn't seen my mom in like the 10 years or whatever since it happened. He saw her and just bawling his eyes out, tears. So when people come visit my mom, she couldn't speak, she couldn't communicate. So I kind of had to be her voice. I was a very socially anxious kid growing up, which like you would look at me now and be like, no, you weren't. But all to say, I had to be her communicator. I had to be her storyteller. So I was always telling my story. Justin was writing his book. And through we're different people, but we have the same vision, the same values, the same attention to detail. So I'm just so grateful that, something higher than us connected us when the time was right.
That's awesome, man. So how do you go out and get clients, or are people coming to you at this point?
Hey, great question. So we are so fortunate now, 5 years in, the referrals are great. When you earn a reputation, when you do a good job, when you go above and beyond, people naturally want to tell other people about your services. So we get a lot of referrals. Also, the other thing too, I am really, really big on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. It's kind of hilarious how much I use LinkedIn, because like people look at it's like so corny, but it is one of the most powerful platforms for organic content. Okay, because Meta, Instagram, Facebook. I don't really use TikTok. That's a Zillennial thing. I don't know. People like TikTok. I just haven't used it. But all these other platforms, the whole model was we're going to give you a ton of reach, and then over time, we're going to squeeze the amount of people that are seeing your content so that eventually you pay. You pay for ads. You pay to boost. That's the whole model, right? LinkedIn is unique in the way that it's kind of an intersection of a networking platform, a business-to-business platform. It's a social media platform, and it's also weirdly also trying to be like a sales platform and like a CRM. Mm-hmm. So I've used LinkedIn to cultivate a personal brand, because another lesson to take away from this podcast is that in today's world, people are associating more with people than they are business brands. So the people behind the brand have more sway and more influence than the brand itself. You think about certain companies, and they kind of have a face to it, right? A CEO that's very visible and talkative. Personal branding supersedes business branding. So I have used LinkedIn consistently. I post 3 times a week like a maniac. I'm actually going to post after this. Let's take a picture after. Be like, oh my God, it's on Ramir's podcast. And then people are going to like it. They'll be like, oh, Tim's doing stuff. Great. All to say, LinkedIn has gotten me so much business. Yeah. I post on LinkedIn. I see who's interacting with my content. So it's kind of like a offense defense. Mm-hmm. On the offense, I try to prospect, directors of marketing, chief marketing officers, CEOs, people that make decisions about marketing budgets. I prospect those people. But by having content, by having a presence, they now can create a perception of me in their head. I am telling them and feeding them the story even before that conversation starts. So through that process and making content, I now create this like virtuous cycle that kind of feeds itself.
Yeah.
So when I post content, I see who likes it. I send them a message like, hey, I saw you like this post. Thanks so much for following along. And it takes those like 7 to 8 touch points on social media for someone to like really know who you are. So by practicing authenticity, I'm now landing calls with people that maybe years ago I wasn't. So now it's like this, as the network grows, like so does your leverage. And I think LinkedIn, if you're especially in B2B, because everyone thinks Instagram, but like, I don't know. Like I don't put a lot of time, energy in Instagram. Why would I? Because like LinkedIn's working. So I've doubled, tripled down on it.
Right.
But clients come from referrals and they come from LinkedIn. But other than that, like we're not cold calling. I'm not cold emailing people. I never found success with that stuff. I know there's people that do.
Yeah.
That's not what we do. But referrals, brand awareness, and word of mouth are huge.
Yeah. Do you think it's easier that you're a smaller business because, you know, people are getting you, basically?
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to like a big marketing agency where it's like you're getting the guy under the guy under the guy under the guy, and you're never going to meet the main guy.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I think being smaller, agile, more nimble, people get to work with me and Justin. And honestly, a big reason why people work with us is because they just have fun. You know, I said this yesterday in the elevator on a video shoot. I'm like, when people see Monk on the counter, it should be like, oh, these guys, not like, oh, these guys are coming in. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we have been able to create more relationships, create more meaningful relationships with clients because it is so hands-on, because we as the founders are working directly with the clients. You know, our model right now, we hire a lot of freelancers, a lot of 1099s. We don't have any like W-2 employees, but we are able to scale and grow our agency through partnerships with other independent businesses that, you know, help us provide the service, and then we kind of manage the experience, the strategy, while also still having heavy hands in the, you know, the production, the post-production. So we're still very close to the product. You know, yeah, we don't have account managers. We don't have managers that are managing managers quite yet. But honestly, too, with the age of like AI and where we're headed, like I think we can stay a pretty nimble company and punch well above our weight. And especially, you know, being here in Waltham, some ambitions, you know, we have a great connection in the Worcester community, the Worcester County community. A lot of our dollars come from the Worcester County community, but we're trying to expand more towards Boston and be that kind of that boutique agency that can punch above their weight and be like a value partnership. Whereas, you know, if you're a bigger agency with 50 people, your projects have to end with 6 zeros or else you can't pay everyone's salaries.
Right, right.
So we can kind of come in at a digestible price point that isn't cheap. Like we're not cheap, I would say. Like our services cost thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, but we can come in at a price point that is effective, and I think really convinces people that, hey, like this is a good place to start, and I'll be working hands-on with Tim and Justin, not, to your point,
Right.
the account manager or something like that. So
What do you think? Are you already utilizing AI or?
great question. Are we using, so we don't use AI in like a, hey, make something creative for us, you know,
Okay.
generate this video for us, do this for us. We use it really, I think, as it's intended right now, which is like the menial processes. So we'll take a lot of raw notes, collect a lot of raw data. Someone with ADHD, I love using like chat to synthesize and like streamline and summarize a lot of like notes and streams of consciousness. I also love using ChatGPT and AI for like opportunity cost analysis. Like, here's option A, here's option B. Give me like the pros and cons of each. So it's helping us make better decisions. Even sometimes too, you know, there's a process in video production called color grading, which is so it's so ambiguous and not a lot of people are good at it, and there's people that have full-time jobs with it. But sometimes what I've done before, you can export like a still image into ChatGPT, say like, hey, here's my frame, what are some suggestions? So I think it's a great organizer, a great streamliner, and it gives you like a starting point. I don't think it's quite there at the point where it's like replacing human creativity. I think it's just another tool in the toolkit, just like the printing press was, just like the telephone was, just like the internet was. Are there certainly concerns in our industry about it? Absolutely. But I think the change clients will always need a strategist. Clients will always need a facilitator, an implementer, an integrator of the technology. A lot of these companies don't have the bandwidth to just be like, all right, we have AI now. Let's run it into the department and start making photos and videos, right?
Yeah.
It takes a person to implement those things. So as long as in this day and age you can be a strategist, I think therefore you have, therefore provide like more value and you're less replaceable. So as long as you're close to the strategy and the transformation and the outcomes and you're not necessarily the cog in the wheel that's producing the service, I think that you'll make it through the AI age for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people are worried about losing their jobs to AI and stuff, and it's like you're not necessarily going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to somebody who knows
how to use it. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, but it's still interesting to see like how far people are going to take it.
Absolutely, my friend.
There's some lady who created an AI artist, like music artist.
Yes.
And she just got signed to a freaking record label.
An
AI music artist. And there's some lady who created an AI actress who supposedly was maybe on the verge of being signed, which I still don't understand exactly how that would work. Like you throw that AI actress in a film with Robert Downey Jr. Like, do you create a whole thing with her?
Do you like project like a hologram on stage of this like AI caricature?
Yeah.
You're like, that's the thing. The future could be very utopian or dystopian based on where we are. Like, I think humanity's at an insane inflection point with all the challenges we have in our society, and like, I'm an optimist. I always believe, humans will do the right thing. So we'll just see where it goes. I'm not an AI expert. I have no idea. But for my level where it is right now, like anything, any technology, I think people want to get like 12 steps ahead. For example, back in 2021, it's like crypto is going to replace banking, blah, blah, blah. And I loved crypto. I had a lot of crypto. You just wake up one day and you made like $2,000. It was stupid. It was ignorant. That wasn't real money. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it just takes time. Technology takes time to integrate. And so it'll integrate. We'll see what comes of it. But being the entrepreneur I am, we're ready for any change. And Monk is a brand. I always say this. If it's not marketing services, I don't care. I'll clean windows. We'll open a food truck. Like the Monk brand can be anything it wants. Doesn't have to be marketing. It is what it is now. But we left it open to interpretation and open to pivot. So as an entrepreneur, no matter what technology changes are going out, just focus on...
What was that?
that was clean. That was clean. I sound so professional. At the end of the day, the tools will change, technology will change, trends, culture will shift. But as an entrepreneur, as long as you're privy to those things and you see where it's headed, as long as you're a visionary, I think you'll be just fine.
It's funny because I was going to ask you that. I was going to say, do you think you're going to stick with Monk Creative as in marketing or expand to other things? Because you just have that freaking entrepreneur thing in you where you're just like, you know what? I'm going to try this completely out of left field to everyone else, but to you, it'll somehow connect to
Yeah. You're getting me excited. So Monk I just see as a lifestyle business. We never built this to exit. Like, this isn't an exit strategy. Monk is like what we want our life to be. Like, I could see myself working with Justin for decades and loving every second of it. Like, I love him. He's like my brother. Like no one knows the trenches we've been in. No one knows the conversations. I've told him things that my family doesn't know, that my friends don't know, that any significant other doesn't know. Like, Justin's my guy. I love him. Love you, Justin. So I see Monk as a lifestyle business. I see Monk in perpetuity. There's no plan on selling or stopping. Like, I just want it to be a thing, just like teaching at Clark. I want to be that professor that's like 60 and I blink and I'm like, oh, I'm still teaching. Nice. You know what I mean? Yeah. But some like personal ambitions I have. Last summer, I actually ran an entrepreneurship workshop for teenagers. So high school students, grades 8 through 12, I ran it at the Mercantile Center in Worcester. I had 2 cohorts. So that's an example of kind of that like offshoot.
Yep.
But the way I see entrepreneurship and personal branding, it all feeds each other. Whether I'm a professor, co-founder of Monk, whether I'm on a board, whether I'm doing workshops, it's a virtuous cycle that feeds everything.
Yeah.
Because even with the workshops, then the parents have a good perception of me. Who might the parents be? Could they be decision makers at different companies? Could they refer me other students and families? So that's an example of maybe some things that itches I'll scratch. But in terms of where Monk's headed, I think our core services will stay the same. Our strategy and brand strategy services are really expansive, kind of more consulting, high-level messaging. Video productions, bread and butter, will always do that. Where I want to head, though, workshops and trainings. Because I think as AI becomes more integrated, people are going to be craving real world experiences as they are already. Like even again, you see even in the dating scene, people are moving off the apps to running clubs and let's go bowling. And you know what I mean? Like we're craving that third place again. So I want to create that third place through our services. I want to host workshops to help people build capacity to tell their own stories.
Yeah.
And I want to do trainings to accomplish the same thing. All the while they're getting the full Tim and Justin experience in person, which will lead to other things. So that's kind of the future where I'm envisioning.
Who do you see as like your mentor? Like whenever you have those moments of
my dad.
I knew you were gonna say that. I knew you were gonna say that.
My dad, 100%. You know what I mean. Like, I'm 29. I live at home. It's been the process. It's where I'm at. I've been able to save money, been able to kind of weather the uncertainty of the business fluctuations. Most importantly, I get to spend time with my parents that I will never get back. When I almost losing my mom, like there's that knowingness and fear that I'm going to lose her again at some point. And I don't care what people may think of where I'm at. I will not take a second for granted. She's seen my business grow over the years from the good to both my parents. And, my dad's my mentor. My mom is like my inspiration. And they've seen every single step of the journey. And like, that's so special. And I just wouldn't trade it for anything. Like if you told me I had to go fucking restart and do that all over again, I would do it every single time. You drop me back in time, I would do this all over again exactly how it happened. Yeah. So my dad is my mentor. I live with my mentor. So, awesome. I could be in the porch and it's like, oh, this client said this and how do we structure this proposal? So I have to go 10 feet to access a guy with 40 years of experience. That's invaluable, and I don't want to understate that. And, likewise, Mr. Mattson, Justin's dad, he's a great career professional, too. He always has, like, really good advice when it comes to, like, kind of the more, like, my dad's a very, like, top-level, big-picture kind of guy. Mr. Mattson's a very, like, technical, kind of, like, finance, operational contracts. He's in a lot of sales jobs. So between both of us, we have great mentors. But my dad's my mentor, and what better person to have than your father?
That's awesome. Fucking good stuff, man. Moose, do you have anything?
No, that was really, really good. When I don't talk a lot, that means I'm locked in and I'm zoned in.
Thank you.
So I don't know if you could tell by two words came out.
So. No, you guys, I could feel the eye contact. It was really good. No, and I know we're kind of getting up at the end here, but again, I can't express my gratitude for coming on here. The serendipity of, the fact that you guys live down the street is just absolutely amazing. Again, I grew up listening to your show. It's so cool to actually meet you, put a face to a name. It was a pleasure meeting your wife, learning about you guys. And I guess if there was one message I would leave anybody listening to this, I would say, you just got to start. It doesn't matter how, but it matters why. I think if you go about life with grace, with love, with intention, you take the high road, you're not undercutting people, you're not doing evil things. Like, I think if you just do that, like, you can and will succeed. And also, I would say just, like, it's so corny, but, like, don't give up. Like, that's so stupid. You only fail when you give up. You don't fail when things go wrong. You fail when you pack it in. Yep. You know what I mean? And third, I would say just, like, I don't know. If you're someone who's starting out on that entrepreneurial journey, the biggest thing you can do as an entrepreneur is don't fucking pull the ladder up behind you. You are not self-made. You were made by the people around you, the people that gave you a chance, the people that saw what you saw before maybe even you felt it or manifested it. I am always happy to talk to anybody starting their business, anybody wanting to start their business. Like, I'm here to be a resource. I have this lived experience as a way to pass it on to other people. Entrepreneurship is life-changing. I think you should not go to your grave being like, oh, I wish I did that. One of the number one regrets people go to their grave with is, I didn't start that business. Mm-hmm. So if you're that person, you're listening to this, and you're waiting on the sideline, I'm happy to, have a conversation, kick that spark off. Entrepreneurship is a life-changing journey. It's a spiritual journey more than anything, and I'm always happy to help.
And notice how you didn't, when you mentioned money, you were like, and it's not about the money. It's not about the money. Where I think a lot of people, their first thing is like, money. And listen, everyone needs money to
And that's
live,
okay, yeah.
but I'm a different breed. I'm all about like how can you turn your passion into dollars,
100%.
as opposed to But not everyone thinks that way, I guess. But you do.
The 100%, man.
You
It cannot
definitely
be about the money. When the money doesn't show up, you just have to do something that you love so much that even when the money isn't showing up, you have something to smile about.
Right. I don't even know what to ask you for random questions. I feel like you answered it all without me asking you. Here we go. Okay, is there something that I didn't ask you that I should have?
Ha! Man, that's a great question. Shoot, I don't really think so. I mean, I think we covered my whole entire journey. I was very earnest, talking about where I came from, where I got to. But, if you're ever looking for creative services, I suppose, call Monk. Well, don't actually call me. Actually, please email me because I get so many spam calls on my Monk cell phone. Like, you're like, I called you and left a message. I'm like, sorry, that was like between the 10 robot spam calls. So if you ever need any assistance, you can reach out at contact@monkcreative.com. Or send me a personal email at thally@monkcreative.com. If you're an organization, you need branding, marketing services, brand strategy, video production especially, we're happy to help, and we'll have a fun time doing it.
Or LinkedIn.
Yes, add me on LinkedIn too. I love LinkedIn. I think we got to that. So yeah, love LinkedIn.
If you get time, this is the last question.
Yes.
Unless you got something there.
No.
Evil genius. Moose's mustache. He's just going to tie a woman to the train when we're done with this. Train tracks. Then he's going to tiptoe away.
Yeah.
Okay, if you could time travel to the past or the future, what is it that you want to see? You can't affect it. You can't affect whatever it is. You can just experience it. Where are you going, front or back, and what do you want to see?
As like in terms of my life or just like anything?
In terms of anything. I want to go back and see how the pyramids were created.
Ooh. Wow.
Yeah.
I want to see the moon landing.
Yeah. What do I want to see? Shoot, man. I don't know. What? Go back in time. You know what? I'll put it this way. We grew up in Massachusetts, and Massachusetts really is like the cradle of like the birth of like the American Revolution. I love that time period. Like, if I could go back and see, like, I don't know, like Concord, the shot heard round the world. You know what I mean? Concord and Lexington. Like that's such a cool story. So I love American Revolutionary War history, and I would go back to that period just to be an observer. See, like, just the fact that we got to where we are as a country through like that birth. We told an empire to go stick it. That's pretty cool. Granted, with the help of the French at the end, after the Battle of Saratoga, 1777, the French were like, oh shoot, we should like help these people. So they sent their navy, their training. Thank you guys, we appreciate you. And then at the time, the French monarchs were like, man, this wouldn't inspire like a revolution in our country, would it? Next thing you know. So we have a lot of ties with France for that reason. But all to say, American Revolutionary War, I would do it. Also, the future. I would like the future. I think people are so scared of the future, especially now. Like climate change, where is that going to end up? Where are we headed? I have so much hope, though. I really think that the next evolution of mankind is not a technological one, which is already going to happen. I think it's a consciousness one. How can we evolve our spirit? How can we evolve our awareness? How can we evolve just how we treat each other and how we perceive those things? You know what I mean? Like everyone's
That's what a lot of people are saying,
100%. I think this
I've heard.
So I totally agree with you, man. Like it's a spiritual evolution of just how we treat each other and kind of ascending our consciousness that way. And I think this next generation, like, we all want to say, we say every generation's like, oh, they're screwed, but this generation has a lot of emotional intelligence. And, you and Nicole's kids, I'm sure, just based on how you guys conversate and talk about things, like they're going to grow up to be successful, emotionally intelligent, regulate emotions, perceive the emotions of others, and then use that to, affect a positive change in their lives, the community. So I have a lot of faith in this next generation. These Gen Zers, I have a lot of Gen Z students, like, they're pretty badass. Like, they know how to use the tools that are given to them. They're not taking no for an answer. Has social media maybe stunted some of their emotional skills? Absolutely. But, with some time, I think those things will even out. But I'm excited for the future, and that's what comes down to being an optimist. So, I'd love to see the future that I'm not a part of, because I think we'll be okay.
Very nice. Tim Hally, Monk Creative, thank you very much, my friend.
You got it. Thank you. Have a good one.
And if anybody has a suggestion for a guest, please, what's the email, Moose?
passionprojectramiro@gmail.com.
Thank you very much.
Or just DM us on Instagram, whatever you want.
Just reach out. LinkedIn. I'm also on LinkedIn. Thank you.
I got to add you.